We're here this evening with Jeff Heimbaugh, who is a candidate for Stark County Clerk of Courts. And Jeff, would you please give the readers of the Stark County Political Report a little bit of background about yourself?
Sure. I am a resident here of Uniontown, Ohio, married. I have 2 children. I've lived in the area 14, 15 years now. Community involvement, I'm not a fireman, but I was president of the board for the Uniontown Fire Department. I served as vice president on the Uniontown Business Association, and I also served as treasurer at Lake Local School District when they had their campaign levy. More like 5 campaigns because we had to go through a number of elections to get that passed. And that's what I've done, and I'm an insurance agent for the past, now 25, 30 years now. I've worked in insurance as a salesman.
And you work right here in Uniontown,
and I work,
right?
yeah, that's correct.
And now, as I recall, have you run for township office
I
at all?
ran for 2 offices. I originally ran for school board, and then I did run for Lake Township trustee.
What years were those, do you remember? Best you can remember.
Well, let's see, what is this,
2000,
I want to say 2008 and 2004.
Okay. And what kind of experience was that for you, running for those offices?
Not anywhere near what I thought it would be for the county level. A whole different ballgame. Obviously, in local level, you can, campaign signs, door to door. You look at the number of voters, something, that's manageable. You look at it at a countywide level, and you're looking at, really tens of thousands of homes. And you're thinking, hey, if I go out and hit so many a night and throughout the year, I mean, it's just overwhelming. And then, of course, if you want to do a mailing, the costs involved to do a mailing country or countywide. Well, basically anything you want to do campaign-wise, countywide, instead of advertising in the Hartville News, to advertise in the Canton Rep, Massillon, it's a lot more expensive. So.
Now, didn't you get drafted to run for Canton Clerk of Courts?
Yes, the candidate dropped out. Got kind of recruited to ask if I would fill in on the ballot.
That was like a couple years ago?
That was a couple years ago. It was literally, if I remember correctly, I think I got it in July, and the election was already, it was going to be in November. So, I mean, there wasn't, I just thought, just in case anything happened to the candidate, they had somebody.
To have somebody running.
Yeah.
And now you are a Republican, is that correct?
That is correct.
Are you a lifelong Republican?
I would say yes, lifelong Republican. I raised my hand and voted for Richard Nixon in the 8th grade. So
I see.
One of the few that didn't vote for McGovern.
Okay. And now you've been in this area about 15 years. Where are you from originally?
I was born in Parma.
I see.
But I was moved here in at the time it was Green Township when I was about 2 years old. So I pretty much was raised in the city of Green. Got married and moved out here.
Okay. And what drew you to get involved in the political realm?
I would say mostly because of my father. We had lots of newspapers and magazines, and he always read them all, and eventually I picked up that habit and became an armchair politician, and I followed politics for a very long time. So that's probably where I get it from. So
there was a lot of discussions in Heimbaugh household, political discussions?
Well, I didn't understand it at the time, but my brother and my father had many of arguments about the Vietnam War.
I see.
It was over my head at that time. But yes, politics was in the Heimbaugh household, although nobody was in political office, nobody ran or anything, but it was definitely discussed in our house.
Have you been involved with the Stark County Republican Party, the organized party? Not. You haven't been a precinct committee?
No, I was in the Republican Party in Summit County, but that was through my college years with Reagan. We did door to door there. Took a group, go down to we went down to the State House and visited the state reps and senators down there and that kind of stuff. Then, of course, I got a job, had to work, so the time involved is a little bit different. And then as my kids got through, have now graduated, now I have some extra time, to get into it. So I'm slowly getting back into it. So between college and probably 2-3 years ago, not a whole lot in the organized party.
Okay, so it's probably about to change.
Yes.
And now you weren't drafted to run for Stark County Clerk of Courts. This was your decision, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and what prompted that?
Well, I like I said, an armchair politician, wanted to get involved, and where do you want to get involved at? I kind of like this position because it's more administrative, and one of the things, and what I mean by that is that, for example, the clerk of courts is divided. She has two job duties. One, of course, is the legal division, taking care of the court records. The other half, of course, is taking care of title. And I can't think of anything in the private sector that more mirrors what I do than the title bureau. You go down, you take your VIN number, you get your car title, you fill out your forms, you put it in a computer, you get your title back. You come into my office, any insurance office, you give them your car title, they run it in the computer, and you get an insurance policy. So I think it was very similar in terms of the duties on that half of it. And I've always been interested in the law. I think I have a good understanding of it. I don't know how you prove that. I don't know how you can, unless you get grilled as to your knowledge of the court, and what you do. But if somebody comes to me and says, hey, a docket entry, I'm not going to look at them and say, I don't know what that is. So I do have a general understanding of the courts.
Okay. Now, obviously, you must think that there's some room for improvement in the Stark County Clerk of Courts as it's being administered by Democrat Nancy Reinbold. Is that a correct assessment? Or?
That would be a correct assessment. Yes.
Okay, and you want to spell out exactly what those deficiencies are from your perspective?
I would point out three deficiencies. One is budgeting. Two is the collection of accounts receivables, and the third one is the computer system, the court management system.
Okay, and let's take those one by one.
Sure.
Budgeting.
Budgeting. Last year she had. And let me look at this. Last year she had a $1.4 million budget, which all came from the general fund. She had zero that came from the sales tax fund. This year her budget was $1.1 million from the general fund, but the commissioners gave her $200,000 from the sales fund. But it was still less this year budgeted than what she had last year. About $126,000 what's budgeted versus what she actually spent last year. However, the question that I very much concerned of that was she also has a fund that is called the Special Projects Fund. It's pretty much she can spend it any way she wants.
Now, is this outside the numbers you just cited?
Yes, she receives at the time when it was originally written up by the court, she receives $130 of the filing fee anytime a foreclosure is filed with the Stark County Common Pleas Court. So that $130 goes into a special projects fund for the clerk's use. At the end of 2011, she had $477,000 in that fund. So now the 2012 rolls around. The commissioner set her budget, came out on February the 15th. However, she waited till August, and then I'll read this. She noted that she reduced her expenses this year by moving some employees in the legal division, which is paid by the Taxpayer Support General Fund, to the auto title division. Well, if she moved those employees, why didn't she move them back in February? She had a $477,000 rainy day fund, which probably equals about 35% of her budget, yet she waited 6 months before she made this change. I also question when she moved these employees, or were these employees moved to open positions, or did she create new positions? Because the title bureau is funded by the title fees, and that's her fourth fund. So she gets general fund money, sales tax money. She gets the fund from the title bureau, title fund fees, and then the fourth one she gets is the special projects funds from the.
Right now, correct me if I'm wrong, but when you say sales tax monies, I think that has to do with the issue that was just passed by Stark County voters.
That's correct.
Criminal justice and administration,
yes.
And the clerk of courts falls under that category.
Right.
So just to fill in a little background for the viewers, that this additional money to the clerk of courts came because the voters of Stark County approved the levy in November of 2011, correct?
But also understand that although she got the extra $200,000, the overall budget is less than what she had last year.
Okay.
But now as we all know, she took $1 million and gave it back to the county, but that was from the title fees. Okay,
That was
and that can only be used for the title bureau. It cannot be used for the we'll call it the legal division. Okay, but she still had $477,000 in the special projects funds that she can pretty much spend on anything she wants. In fact, I thought it was very strange, and I don't know how you can tell your employees this. Last year, although she asked her employees to take a 20% discount, she spent $58,000 to hire temporary help. So I don't know how you can tell your employees, I don't have money, I need to cut your income by 20%, and then turn around and hire a temporary agency and pay them $58,000 to bring in temporary help.
Are you saying that she could use some of that special project fund money to cover salaries and?
She's already doing it for 4 employees.
Okay, and so there's no reason from your way of thinking that she couldn't extend that.
She couldn't attend. Now her argument was last year she didn't want to spend that $477,000 because she didn't know if the sales tax would pass.
Okay.
If it didn't pass, she wanted to save it for next year. I have a disagreement with that. I think it's a legitimate concern on her part. My thing would have been is that I really question if the commissioners would not have just imposed the sales tax, because I think when you look at the figures, if they had not done anything and it would not have passed, I think Stark County government would have came to a stop. I mean, it would have been a financial meltdown. So the commissioners had 2 ways to go. You could say, well, that's what the voters wanted, and we just let things go to pot. Or they would have turned around and they could have imposed the sales tax. Mm-hmm. Now, how many times they could have, waited? I don't know could they waited and done another ballot in February and then another one in May, and then maybe had to do it. I mean, I'm not sure on that part of it, but I would have taken the $477,000 and kept the office running, because you have to remember she closed the office and didn't open until 10:30.
I see.
And then cut the employees 20%.
So your premise is that with that special projects money, there was no reason for her to go on an austerity drive.
It's a rainy day fund, and last year was raining cats and dogs. So,
Okay.
I mean, if that isn't a reason not to use the money, I don't know what for. My question would be, what are you saving it for then? I mean, you're going to save it for next year, and then, you can always say, hey, next year we don't know what's going to happen. You got to deal with what's in front of you now.
Okay.
And to me, I would have spent the money to keep the office open.
Okay. Now, the special projects fund money, is that over 1 year or is that cumulative?
The $477,000 is she spent in 2011. That $477,000 is after she spent $77,000 reimbursing 4 employees and spending the $58,000 to hire temporary help. So in effect, her total amount that she had for the year, $58.77 plus $477, wherever that comes out to. So she had another $120,000 on top of the $477. So she really probably had close to $600,000 if she had not spent anything.
In the special
In the
project
present
fund?
project, she probably would have had close to $600,000
For 1 year? She collected that in 1 year?
No, that is cumulative, and then it just gets reduced. Well, it gets reduced by whatever she spends, and then it also increases based on how many foreclosures are filed in Stark County.
Okay. You have any idea of how much of that was for the last year that was collected in
How much was collected? Well, obviously, with the number of foreclosures that are happening countrywide, not just Stark County, I am sure that fund has been up the last couple of years.
Right.
So,
Okay.
I mean, I'm sure there's a lot more funds that she's received than she has in the past.
Okay. Anything else on budget?
Well, I'll follow up with that budget. I have another issue with that budget, but we'll hold that for later.
Okay, well, I'm ready to move on to that if you are.
Okay, yeah.
Go ahead.
The second issue then would be the collection of the accounts receivable, which is the unpaid court costs, fines, and penalties that is collected by the clerk of courts.
Okay, is this the second problem you see with the operation of the clerk's office? You called it collection,
Yes.
and when we talked a little earlier in this interview, is that where we are?
Could you repeat that?
Yeah, are we talking about you had 3 different...
Yes, this is the second.
This is the second, right?
Yes.
Just so people who are following the interview can keep track where we started out when you gave the outline.
Yeah.
Okay, go right ahead.
I purposely went back I did not ask what the total amount was for the uncollected fees, penalties, and court costs were for the common pleas court because, of course, Nancy hasn't been in the entire time. I do not know how far back they go, and if they keep a running total, and how far back they go to keep that total. I purposely asked through an open records request 10 years ago. Oh, I'm sorry, not 10 years ago. I asked for an open records request to go back 10 years. The reason I wanted to go back 10 years was in 2001, the state legislature approved that you could allow the clerk of courts to hire a collection agency to help collect these funds that are outstanding in the clerk's of court's office, because obviously they saw the need for that. So they hired a clerk, so clerks would go out and hire a collection agency. So I went back to 2001 and I said, okay, from 2001 to present, which would have been 2011, how much is outstanding in terms of what's not been collected? Right now it stands at 5.7, a little over $5.7 million has not been collected. I think when you look at her record,
And that's going back 10 years.
that's going back 10 years.
Okay.
So it could even be higher than that. Like I said, I don't know if they go back 20 years, 30, I don't know what the running total is, but for the last 10 years, it's 5.7 million.
So if you get elected, you're going to try to go back beyond that and
Well-
report to the Stark County taxpayers how much is really owed to Stark County?
Well, yeah, I'll be able to, I did not ask for that total. If I did, she may be able to provide that for us. I don't know. But I will be able to tell you when I get in office what is the total amount that's not been collected.
So you believe it's really more
It
than
could be
that?
even more than that, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then out of that 5.7 million, last 2011 it was about 703,000. In 2010 it was 600 and some thousand that has gone uncollected. I did pull an article from the newspaper in Butler County. Butler County is a county that is the most similar in population to Stark County. So in terms of benchmarking, that's the one we always compare with. They have 7 judges in the Court of Common, or in the General Division. We have 5 here in Stark County. They filed like 9,000 cases last year in Butler County. I think Stark County was less than that, and I can't remember what the exact total was. And so when you look at that, and I looked at the paper, the clerk of courts in 2010 in Butler County said that her outstanding fees were $68,000. I was quite taken aback by that number, 68,000 versus 600,000, 700,000 the past year. So obviously, I do have an open records request that is still outstanding with the Butler County Clerk of Courts. So I want to find out what exactly is the number. So instead of just going on the newspaper article, I also want to get it from them as well. I've not heard back. I'm waiting for that information.
Okay, so you'll provide that
Yeah.
to the Stark County Political Report when you get that?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
oh, definitely. So obviously, based on that, there's quite a lot of money that has not been collected. Now, one of the things you can look at is, well, what has she done? Well, she's been. You remember, she was appointed when there was about 1 year left in Phil Giovas's term. She got reelected for a 4-year term, so she's been in office for 5.5 years. I can't know the exact figure. And during that time, during the first 4.5 years, she never hired a collection agency to go after this money. And in fact, if you pull out the Canton Repository in October 4th of 2010, she is quoted as saying that I will hire a collection agency by the end of the year. She never hired a collection agency by the end of the year. In 2011, she never hired a collection agency. And then about April of 2012 of this year, she hired a collection agency. And surprise, let me bring you back to my point that I told you to bring back to you. She hired the collection agency in 2012. Next month, she's going to announce that you can pay your bills online, which is another item that she said she was going to institute back in October of 2010. And she restored the hours back to the courthouse in August. So my question is all these changes taking place because it's an election year? Has she held these changes? Is it a competence issue that she just can't manage the department and get the things done? So why are all three happening now, just literally months before the election? So I think that is a little strange.
Okay. Anything else on the collection issue? Oh, let me ask this. I have a question. Did the Butler County Clerk indicate to you why their collection outstanding amount is so low? I mean, what have they done to get to that level?
You're not the first person to ask that question, and I don't have an answer for it. because although they are very nice down there in Butler County, I tried to get into a conversation, and it was a conversation that didn't go very far as to what are the particulars you're doing, what do you find successful, and getting down to the nitty gritty of what they're doing. Then I would have to turn around, of course, and find out if Nancy would give me, the information as to what they're exactly doing in terms of collection, and then compare the two and say, okay, here's what Nancy's not doing, and oh yeah, pop that out for you. I couldn't get that information from Butler. I would tell you that if elected, one of the first things I would do is call up Butler County and say, hey, I'm the newly elected guy down here. Can I have my person call you, or can I send somebody down to your office and take a look at your operation? Because if that is really true at $68,000, I want to know why and what you're doing. Because if it was a $500,000 versus a $600,000 difference, you could point to some of that as some of the judges don't because when you go before sentencing. When they tell you to pay court costs, they also have to determine if the person is indigent or has the ability to pay, and they can waive those fees. That they waive. So there's a lot of differences if you're $100,000 apart, but we're talking literally $600,000 difference. So, and again, I'm saying this, and of course, I hope it doesn't come back to bite me because I'm waiting for that information to come back to confirm that. It was just in the paper that I found on the internet, and then like I said, hopefully this week. I had heard that this week I might get that information from Butler, so that all may change.
So one of your objectives, if elected, is to find out why the disparity and how to correct it.
Yes, and if you go to there's the National Commission on Courts, I think it's called. They have 4 white papers that are just on this subject. So, yes, have I delved into it a ton? No. And do I have experience in the collection field? No. Will I find out about it? Yes. I think it's a matter of putting priority on it. Again, if you're in office, you wait 4.5 years to even hire a collection agency, you're not paying attention to the problem, and you're not putting your resources into it. You're just letting it slide. And I think, and if there was an election, my question would be, would we even still have a collection agency to help out?
Your third issue.
Third issue is the computerization of, it's called the case management system, which is the computer system that the clerk of courts uses to keep track of all the records for the courts, including domestic. In Stark County, it's called the family court, and the common pleas level. Probate has their own, so we wouldn't cover the case management system through the probate. Stark County is one, I think, of 3 courts in the entire state that operates their own in-house case management system. The other one is Franklin County, and I think Crawford County is the third one. Franklin County, of course, is probably 10 times the budget we have here in Stark. They're flush with money down there, so they can run their own system. My question is, originally what happened was Phil Giovassis, the former clerk, received a grant, I think it was $1 million, to institute a court management system. The problem with that is technology gets old, and we have to upgrade that. The other thing is we have to maintain it, and we're maintaining it with, I just don't think Stark County Court is big enough to maintain and run its own software program. Stark County shouldn't be in the software business. 53 of the 88 common pleas courts use a commercial available product called CourtView. Why aren't we using CourtView? When I talked to Butler County, they said they couldn't give me the exact figure at that time because they were upgrading CourtView, like going from 2.0 to 2.5. They were estimating $40,000 to $45,000 a year to lease that software program for Butler County to use. Okay, Stark County has 2 programmers on staff. That's costing, with benefits, approximately $143,000 a year. Okay, to maintain that system.
Combined.
Okay. In addition, you'd like to know, we also have a third employee, but that employee is an independent contractor who we contract with, who is a former clerk of courts employee who lives in Las Vegas, Nevada. Speaking of upgrades, Stark County is going to institute e-filing, which will allow attorneys to file by email instead of running down to the courthouse and filing the fees with the courthouse. And of course,
when's that going to happen?
Well, I don't know. They're looking, hopefully, to set. They haven't set out bids yet. I had some problems with that. I think what we should first do is take a quick study. I don't think it would be very long. I don't think it would be very expensive. And here's Courtview, and here's what all Courtview provides, and here's what their reports and their bells and whistles and all that stuff. And then here's our special case management system that was written by Stark County, and what does it provide and what does it do? Okay, and then look at the two and say, okay, which is the better program? And then secondly, let's look at the cost. Because the other thing is they also run a program that is used by the Sheriff's Department, and they also run a program that's used by the Prosecutor's Office. I don't know if there's additional costs in those two offices that also run those programs in addition to whatever's
An
run out.
additional cost to the clerk of courts.
No. The clerk of courts, that's all, that's it. It's just
Okay,
those three employees.
okay, but
is there another employee that takes care of the sheriff's portion of it in the sheriff's office, or as part of their job? So let's find out what the true cost is.
so if the clerk of courts can do this work more efficiently and more effectively,
Yes.
there could be spillover savings perhaps to other Stark County departments of government.
Yes, because the third part of that is not only comparing the two systems and what they can provide, the cost between the two systems, but then there's also being able to talk, in other words, be able to transfer information. In other words, how good is the information flowing from the sheriff's office to the clerk's office to the prosecutor's office, and how much is, and of course we also have the courts with the judges. How much is that information, how much are we able to talk to each other? And again, let's compare. Let's see what the county system is doing, and let's compare it to what the commercially available programs can do. Now, in terms of cost of that e-filing system that we were talking about.
Yeah, let me, before you
Go
go
ahead.
to that, is make sure I understand. Is it a premise of your presentation that Courtview software will handle e-filing?
There are courts that already do. Montgomery Court does use e-filing, and they are. No, I take that back.
Is it a part of Courtview?
Well, here's the issue.
Do I have that name right?
Yeah,
Is it
Courtview.
the-
Yeah. Well, there's actually two systems that are used by about 85% of all courts in Ohio, and one is Courtview, and the other one, and I'm not. Don't hold me to this one. I think it's called Hitchens, Hichens, I think. And about 85% of the courts use one of those two programs. Okay, but on the common pleas level, Courtview obviously is the 53 out of the 88. On the municipal court level, Hitchens is actually used more on the community court level than Courtview, but on the common pleas level, Courtview is used more than Hitchens. If you go to their website, they do have a module that you can buy if you want to do e-filing, or you can use other vendors. So what I don't know is, for example, Delaware County has e-filing. Okay, Dayton, and I can't remember Dayton's name, county.
Montgomery County.
Montgomery County
Right.
also has e-filing. Montgomery County and Delaware County use Courtview. What I can't tell you is if they bought the package or the module from Courtview for the e-filing, or if they use another vendor, but they do have an e-filing system.
Do you know what that package costs?
Well, I have a open records request, and I'm still waiting on Delaware County to tell us how much that one is. I just found out about Montgomery.
But you're
So
thinking that it's cheaper than reinventing the wheel? Do I have you right on
exactly. And again, my question is this: and I'll give you the cost here in just a second. What's going to happen 5 years from now when we have to upgrade the system again, and something else new comes along? Stark County is going to have to produce, or is going to have to cover that cost. We're not going to be able to spread it out. We can't go to Courtview and say, hey, there's 53 courts, and we have this new thing that the Supreme Court has come down with, or the state legislature has come down with, and now there's this new requirement we have to do. Okay, can you put it in our system? Courtview does it, and then again, the cost is spread. Stark County, we're going to have to hire our own programmers outside, come in, and we're going to have to make changes, just like they're doing now with the e-filing. The judge in the e-filing said that, according to her, Montgomery County was going to cost $750,000. Oh, I'm sorry. The judge said that in Montgomery County it costs approximately $750,000 to institute e-filing. When I was with the Canton Repository Editorial Board, Nancy said that their estimate now is $1 million to institute an e-filing system in Stark County. So again, if they institute that before I come into office. At that point, if you're sinking $1 million, you'll never get the return on investment, even if it was better. So it kind of depends where they're going to be at.
Does Montgomery County have its own system?
No, Montgomery County and Delaware County use CourtView.
Okay,
I don't know who they use for the e-file, but they have
Oh,
e-file.
okay. So that's the reason I asked that question, as if I was somewhat confused,
Yeah.
is because you don't know that 700 and some odd $1,000 represents the package cost from CourtView.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the module that you could buy from CourtView,
Right.
or they went to a second vendor. They still have CourtView, but you can use a different vendor for the
Right.
e-file. So I don't know if the $750,000 was to another one, and so I had that. So that's why I sent the request to Delaware. I just found out about Montgomery actually today, of all time. But Delaware, I sent a request to asking, hey, what did it cost to put in e-file, and did you use CourtView? And then what was the cost when you instituted it? I may or may not send another request out to Montgomery. I just don't know how
Okay.
fast that.
So you have a question out to Montgomery to
Yes.
pinpoint whether or not they use CourtView.
I have a question out to Delaware, not Montgomery.
No, Delaware. Okay.
Now, just to throw one more at you, the judge said it was $750,000 in an article in September of 2011. In the meeting we had with the Camp Repository Editorial Board, Nancy says that's now $1 million. The other thing I found very strange too is when you go to these.
Let me stop you.
Go ahead.
Judge said 700. Judge from where?
Judge from Stark County, the female judge, and I can't.
Taryn Heath.
Could have been. She was the presiding
She's
judge.
She's the only female judge.
Oh, okay. She's okay. Then she's the one that did it.